Well, good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Welcome back. Hope you had a good couple days since our last stream. And I hope you're ready for our famous Wednesday stream where we read the opening lines of your favorite books and talk about why they're good, what they're doing, break them down from an author's point of view. It's a whole lot of fun. I hope you'll join me for it. Melissa Lee, hello. Welcome in. First Indeed, you made it right in. I appreciate you. Hey, good morning to you. Hope you're doing good. Thanks for joining, Fat Frog. Good to see you as well, my guy. Y'all, I appreciate you showing up. Hope you've been doing good. Is your week going well? Off to a good start, I hope. Yeah, you're here right on time, Melissa. I appreciate it. It's all good, though. Y'all, you know the drill. If you got some books you'd like me to read, let me know. I've got 2 on the list already to start it off, but I'm happy to add more. Hatchet once more? You got it, Melissa. Who's the author on that one? I should know that. Boy, I butchered that spelling. Okay, now I made it worse. Gary Paulson. Yeah, I see. I should have known that. Yeah, FM No Casuals. It has been a week since the last one. Isn't that crazy? It's kind of nuts how time flies. It's a little bit scary to think about sometimes. Welcome back, though. Tara, horror author, good morning, good morning. Good to see you. Hope your Wednesday's off to a good start. Let's see if we can't make it a little bit better. Fat Frog, you want Outlander. Okay, what's, is the first book called Outlander? I feel like it's called something else, right? No, it's just called Outlander. Look at that. All right. Outlander it is by Diana Galbadon, right? Galbadon? I don't know, man. I don't know, but it's on the list. It's on the list. Tara, if we did that book last stream, we need to wait at least 1 stream before we do it again. Also, please recommend books that you enjoy, not just your book. Slendy, good morning, my guy. Callisto, you said The Alchemist? Who's that by? I'm not aware of that one. William the Wolfman, you said Metro series. What's the full title and author so I can look that up? Friendly Jim, you said Wealth of Nations. I feel like I know that book. Yeah, I'm not sure that one's gonna quite get what we're looking for, but if you're serious, I'll put it on there, man. We can talk about it. The Only Fletch. I appreciate Scythe by Neil Shusterman, but we did that one last stream, so we try to let it cool off for 1 stream before we do it again. So feel free to recommend something else. Otherwise, we can do it next stream for sure. Mackie said, what's your best tip for an aspiring author? Have fun. Have fun and write short stories. Don't start with novels right off the bat. Start with short stories. They're a lot easier, and they teach you everything you need to know for novel writing, but they're a lot quicker to do, and there's a lot of contests you can submit to for free. See if you can't win a little bit of acclaim or just get some good feedback, you know? S. Milos, you said Dragon Prince? Who's that by? I will try to get it in there. Millie, A Court of Thorns and Roses. That's actually a first for the stream. I could be excited about that one, just to kind of see what's going on with it all. Ellie Bear, you said my opinion on AI. I'm not much of a fan. I think there are areas that it's useful. I don't think creativity and writing is one of them. I got into writing because I enjoy writing, so I don't know why I would want a computer to use it, or to do it. Oh wow! Hey faithless, said Bud not Buddy. Boy, that's taking me right back to my childhood. I loved that book growing up. By Christopher Paul Curtis. Thank you very much for recommending that one. I loved that. That book like hit me on a level I didn't expect. When I read it as a kid. William, thank you for the chat. I am reading YT chat. That's not the right one. The video app chat. It's just a little bit harder to see. But yeah. Let's see. What recommendations are over there? You said 48 Laws of Power? Sounds like a lit RPG or something. Is this fiction? Definitive manual for anyone interested in gaining, observing, and defending ultimate control? That's quite a strange description. It's got a lot of reviews. I'll tell you that much. 85,000 is a lot of reviews. All right. Alicia asked, "Am I familiar with interactive fiction?" I don't think so. I've heard of books where you kind of choose your own adventure type thing, but I feel like this is probably an iteration on that. Shifty, you want Wizard's First Rule by Terry Goodkind. You got it. All right, that's a good list right there. So let's dive into it. We'll start reading a few of these, and then we'll take more as we go. Masked, I agree. Scythe by Neal Shusterman is great. In fact, it's so great we've done it 3 or 4 times on stream, I think. It's really good, but I try to let it cool off for one stream in between, so we don't just do it every single stream, and we did do it last week. So if you want, you can go to my profile and watch last week's stream, and it's in there, or you can recommend it next week, and we'll do it again. Every time I talk about it, every time I read it, I find new things to talk about, because it's just so good. All right, let's start with the first one that was recommended was Hatchet by Gary Paulson. So let's give it a read. We got our cover here. Classic. I think a lot of folks read this in school, right? I remember not liking it back in the day, but I don't know why that is. I don't remember why exactly. Maybe because someone told me I had to read it. Alright, ooh, and the font's nice and big too. It's being kind to me. I love it. Let me adjust my image because it's a little bit off-center for y'all. One moment. I appreciate all the recommendations, everyone. Very lively. I've got a good list here. I'll keep adding to it, but we should also read a few of these. So, Hatchet by Gary Paulson. Brian Robeson stared out the window of the small plane at the endless green northern wilderness below. It was a small plane, a Cessna 406, a bush plane, and the engine was so loud, so roaring and consuming and loud, that it ruined any chance for conversation. Not that he had much to say. He was 13, and the only passenger on the plane was a pilot named... What was it? Jim or Jake or something? Who was in his mid-40s and who had been silent as he worked to prepare for takeoff. In fact, since Brian had come to the small airport in Hampton, New York, to meet the plane, driven by his mother, the pilot had only spoken 5 words to him. Get in the co-pilot seat. Which Brian had done. They had taken off, and that was the last of the conversation. There had been the initial excitement, of course. He had never flown in a single-engine plane before, and to be sitting in the co-pilot seat with all the controls right there in front of him, all the instruments in his face as the plane clawed for altitude, jerking and sliding on the wind currents as the pilot took off, had been interesting and exciting. But in 5 minutes they had leveled off at 6,000 feet and headed northwest, and from then on the pilot had been silent, staring out the front, and the drone of the engine had been all that was left. The drone and the sea of green trees that lay before the plane's nose and flowed to the horizon, spread with lakes, swamps, and wandering streams and rivers. All right, cool. So that's a good stretch of it there. Let's talk about it. Oh, and thank you for the heart me's, everybody. I appreciate that. And the roses, Tara. Thank you. Y'all are too kind. All right. So first, what I noticed with this is it's a very flowing style of writing. There's a lot of I appreciate it. It's almost stream of consciousness in how the thoughts are laid out, not as short punctual sentences or even medium length. They're a little bit longer. They just flow like a train of thoughts, which is a very casual way to get folks into the perspective of the main character or the narrator in this instance. I also like that, having been in a bush plane like this before, I like the details. They're pretty spot on. The loudness of the engine is right there. Very accurate. Though typically you would have a headset with sound dampening in it and a way to talk back and forth with the pilot. Perhaps they do have that and we just haven't gotten to it yet, but the engines are loud, that's for sure. Very realistic there. As far as hooks go, this one doesn't have a very strong hook right off the bat. At least not per modern standards. This changes as as writing progresses, as genres come in and out of fashion. There are different accepted ways to do hooks. There are different effective ways to do hooks. This one, I guess the hook is flying in a bush plane, which is exciting, especially as this is meant for, I believe, a younger audience. I think this is kind of a YA, and on the lower end of YA, the younger end of YA. Young adult, if you're not familiar with the genre abbreviations. So flying in a plane is a fun hook, I suppose. It's not the most hooky of hooks for me. And if you've watched this stream format before, you'll know I talk a lot about hooks are basically questions that you want to make the reader ask so that they stick around because they want the answer. So there's not, I guess a hook you could say here is, why is he flying in this plane? Why has he come to the airport, exchanged no words with the pilot, and then just gotten and flown into the northern wilderness? So I guess that works as a hook. This is a survival story. So I think the details are kind of on point for that. But yeah, I guess there's a quick analysis of Hatchet by Gary Paulsen, a classic. Not quite to my taste, at least the book itself, but the opening, nothing wrong with it. And hey, it's got a lot of reviews and it's won a lot of awards. So really, who am I to criticize, right? Angelica, you read it in middle school? Yeah, I feel like a lot of us did. Jack Ann, you said Depths of Vandolph by Brady Hunsaker. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that you recommended that last stream and we didn't get to it, right? So we'll make sure that goes at the top of the list today. Thank you for recommending it again. T, you want Serpent and the Wings of Night. The Serpent and the Wings of Night. I don't think we've done that one. By Carissa Broadbent. You got it on the list. Thank you very much for recommending it. All right, so there's Hatchet. Let's move that up and off the list. Y'all, I was really excited by A Court of Thorns and Roses, honestly, because I don't know if I've ever read the opening, despite it being a very popular book. So let's grab that one. And it's by, I should know this, Sarah J. Maas. Yeah. Okay, I did know that. Alright, so we'll get our cover for a minute. We like to look at the covers. And I will update the list. There we go. Yeah, Slendy, this book is quite popular. It had several moments in the sun. Book talk virality for sure. I mean, 300,000 reviews on Amazon is, frankly, an unfathomable number. That's insane. But hey, very popular author, very popular book. Let's give it a little opening. I've always been partial to this cover. I don't think it's like... It's a little bit simple, but I think it's simple to a point. It stands out well, and I think that's a good thing for a cover to do. It doesn't give me vibes for what to expect from the book, but it does catch my attention. And I always say on these streams, hooks are things that make the readers ask questions and keep them engaged. They'll stick around to get those answers. A cover operates similarly, and it needs to catch interest. That's step one. The next step is it needs to encourage people to read more. I'm not sure that this art, and I imagine there's different covers out there, but this art itself doesn't encourage me to read more, but it definitely catches my interest. So it achieves step one, right? That's always going to be a subjective thing, though. Alright, so let's get into it. Alright, we're going back to the small font, y'all. Back to hard mode. Slendy, yes, it is one, we'll quote, one of those romance novels. It's one of the, I would say we'll go to the original romanticises, but I think a lot of the ones that followed, this is rude of me to say, but I don't really respect their fantasy chops. It feels like they're more romance than they are fantasy. This one, from what I've looked into, has surprised me with being pretty heavily fantasy. I expected it to be more romance, less fantasy, but no, I don't believe that is the case. Michael, you finished Paragon 3? Rock on, man. Thank you for reading that. I hope you enjoyed it. Book 4 and 5, like I said, are with the publisher, and we're just sitting on our hands waiting for them to get it out, but fingers crossed they get it out there for you soon, man. I will let you know if I get any word from them. Alright, Chapter 1 of A Court of Thorns and Roses. The forest had become a labyrinth of snow and ice. I'd been monitoring the parameters of the thicket for an hour, and my vantage point in the crook of a tree branch had turned useless. The gusting wind blew thick flurries to sweep away my tracks, but buried along with them any signs of potential quarry. Hunger had brought me farther from home than I usually risked, but winter was the hard time. The animals had pulled in, going deeper into the woods than I could follow, leaving me to pick off stragglers one by one, praying they'd last until spring. They hadn't. I wiped my numb fingers over my eyes, brushing away the flakes clinging to my lashes. Here there were no telltale trees stripped of bark to mark the deer's passing. They hadn't yet moved on. They would remain until the bark ran out, then travel north past the wolves' territory and perhaps into the fairylands of Prythian, where no mortals would dare go. Not unless they had a death wish. A shudder skittered down my spine at the thought, and I shoved it away, focusing on my surroundings, on the task ahead. That was all I could do, all I'd been able to do for years, focus on surviving the week, the day, the hour ahead. And now, with the snow, I'd be lucky to spot anything, especially from my position up in the tree, scarcely able to see 15 feet ahead. Stifling a groan as my stiff limbs protested at the movement, I unstrung my bow before easing off the tree. The icy snow crunched under my fraying boots, and I ground my teeth. Low visibility, unnecessary noise, I was well on my way to yet another fruitless hunt. Only a few hours of daylight remained. If I didn't leave soon, I'd have to navigate my way home in the dark, and the warnings of the town hunters still rang fresh in my mind. Giant wolves were on the prowl, and in numbers. Not to mention whispers of strange folk spotted in the area, tall and eerie and deadly. Okay. Interesting. Interesting opening. I'm enjoying, I like the sense of setting so far. It feels very grounded. I mean, it's a classic fantasy opening, right? I mean, you can't get any more classic fantasy, almost to a fault of, somebody hunting deer for food for their family in a survival situation. Like, make the main character a farm boy, and we're right back to the mid to late 90s, early 2000s classic fantasy. That's a bad thing, though. It goes genre conventions go in circles like that, where that is accepted as kind of the standard place where so many classic fantasies start, and then people push back against that and write stories that do it differently, and then that goes on long enough that people yearn for the original opening, and it kind of circles back again, right? That's just kind of how it goes. All right, but let's talk about this. I liked the opening line, frankly, y'all. The forest had become a labyrinth of snow and ice. I'm a little bit skewed in this regard. I can be hooked by settings as a hook. I find setting very interesting. Common knowledge, recent information seems to point to the fact that settings are not the strongest way to hook a reader, but it works on me, so I'm a little bit biased in that regard. So the opening line of the forest had become a labyrinth of snow and ice works for me pretty well. I think if we're talking about hooks, though, let's just read the first paragraph here. The forest had become a labyrinth of snow and ice. I'd been monitoring the parameters of the thicket for an hour, and my vantage point in the crook of a tree branch had turned useless. The gusting wind blew thick flurries to sweep away my tracks, but buried along with them any signs of potential quarry. So, I think that opening paragraph, up until the last half of the last sentence, works as a hook in that it encourages you to wonder why the main character's there and what they're doing. Now, it's not the most, original hook in terms of you can assume they're probably there hunting for food. It's a fantasy book. This is a trope. But tropes exist for a reason, and often because they work and people like them. But I kind of like how it almost disguises itself until that last sentence. So you almost kind of wonder why the main character is there and what they're doing. And then right when you get your answer, right into the next paragraph, it continues to explain hunger had brought me farther than home than I usually risked. And I feel like there's just a little bit of ominous note to that, and I like it. It dials up very slowly a little sense of danger. And I like that. Jack Ann, I fully agree with what you're saying. Second paragraph might have been a stronger start. I think so. I think the opening line of hunger had brought me farther from home than I usually risked is a pretty effective opening. Like I said, I was hooked by the setting. The forest had become a labyrinth of snow and ice. That's a cool line. That I like that. But I agree that hunger had brought me farther from home than I usually risked. It could work as a pretty good opening. Now you also have to consider, when was this published? Because this one's been out for a hot minute. Let's see. 2020, wow. I thought it was older than that. I guess it's just that, unless this isn't a first edition. Let's see. Yeah, there you go. May 2015. That tracks a bit more with what I was thinking. Okay, so yeah, you have to consider, like I said, these trends on how to hook a reader right off the bat change from time to time. It's especially prevalent if you read back through the decades. You'll really see how different openings work and what was popular at the time. So I feel like a more direct opening might have hooked readers a little bit faster, but I also feel like for the 20 teens, this was a pretty standard way to do it. Either way, I found it enjoyable, and like I said, from what I've looked into, I think this series has more fantasy chops than I expected it to. So, I haven't read it yet, but I'd be interested to. Austin, over on the video app, you said, do plays count? I've never done a play. I would try it for fun. I am certainly in no position to critique or talk or break down plays. I'm an author, not a playwright. But if you want to throw one at me, and I can find the text readily available, could be fun. Jake Hartman, you said, I remember reading The White Fox Chronicles by Gary Paulson when I was in 6th grade. Thought it was the best thing I'd ever read. I've not heard of that. I guess I just don't know Paulson very well. I guess I don't know his books. Glad you enjoyed it, though, man. Also, good morning. Welcome in. Dinkle, you said check House of Leaves. Yeah, we've done that one on here before. That's an interesting book. It does a lot of creative stuff, and I appreciate that. But you have to give it a little bit of time to breathe, Phoenix, you said the problem with lit RPGs is they don't actually start very good. I could agree with that. It depends. We read Nightmare Arcanist by Shami Stovall last stream, and y'all, that one was very good. That was a very solid opening. I was pretty impressed with that. But Shami's a established author. She's been writing forever. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Depths of Vanolf is lit RPG, right? Or something similar to that? Let's take a look. Jim, thank you for the galaxy, my dude. You're way too kind. Appreciate you. You know what? If you're going to be doing that, we have a tradition around here. If you give a gift, you get a gift. And for a galaxy, I think 3 whole goblins for you, my friend. All these are yours. Hey, there's 3 rules with them. Rule number 1, hide all of your matches. They love to start fires. Rule number 2, don't feed them after midnight. Doesn't go well. Rule number 3, this one's not really a rule, it's just a warning. Your house is never going to be clean again. I apologize. They're very cute. They're quite the troublemakers. Thank you for the galaxy, buddy. I appreciate you. What was that? Phoenix, you said Shami is closer to fantasy than lit RPG. I could see that. That felt to be the case from what we read, but I quite liked it. All right, y'all. I got to talk about this cover. I am a huge fan of this. Jim, you'll take great care of the goblins. Thank you, my guy. I appreciate that, and I'm happy to know they are going to a good home. Sky as well for the hand hearts. Thank you, my friend. You guys are too generous. Hey, gift for a gift. Oh, are they blurry? My goblins? Am I blurry? I'm blurry. Hold on. Hold on. We fix. Hey, there we go. Okay. Goblins for you. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. Oh, Phoenix, you just bought this book. Rock on. It's been asked to be read multiple times on stream. We hadn't gotten to it, so I'm excited to get to it. This cover is sick, y'all. I'm not sure I don't know what to expect from it, but it does look cool, and I appreciate that. Lego Pine over on the video website, where I also stream live, you asked, am I reviewing books? I'm not reviewing them so much as I'm taking suggestions from y'all, and then I read the opening lines of them, and I give you an author's perspective on them. So feel free to recommend one if you want. Not really reviewing the quality of the book, more so talking about how the sausage gets made of it. Lego, yeah, you can shout one out and we can put it on the list. I have I can probably get through most of this list today. I don't think it's too long yet. Jim, you said I've seen you around but never really got to know who you are or what your books are. Well, we'll take a quick moment and talk about that. So, I am author Alex Knight. I've been writing full-time since 2018. Before that, I was a ghostwriter and a freelance business writer, but now I get to write books full-time. And these are some of my books. Up here is fantasy. Down here is lit RPG. And these are all the book ones, at least. A lot of these have sequels. They're all linked in my bio. They're all on Amazon and Audible as ebooks, paperbacks, and audiobooks if you're interested. And this is my newest one. It is fantasy comedy, and it follows a family of goblins on a quest to retrieve the Dark Lord's doomsday weapon so they can help him destroy the forces of good. Except they're goblins, so they're not very good at staying on task or really doing anything you tell them to. So it goes a little bit off the rails. Feel free to check it out if you want. I'd appreciate it. And thank you for stopping by, Jim. I appreciate you being here. Feel free to recommend a book if you want. If you're looking for one to start with, I would recommend, if you like comedy, Wriggly Little Hands is a great place to start. If you want something a little more serious and action heavy, Servant of Rage is kind of like Dragon Ball Z meets Highlander. Big intense fight scenes and kind of heavy themes of self-growth, I suppose. So I'd pick one of those two. Alright, back to not my books. Oh, Tam, you read Warden? Rock on, thank you. There's not a lot of folks that remember Warden these days. That dropped in 2018, which is an absolute eon ago in the world of lit RPG, a very fast-moving genre. But I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you for saying so. It's my wife says it's still her favorite series that I've written, so I aspire one day to best that. All right. I saw Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames. We can definitely throw that on there. It was actually, I I would say, a professional acquaintance with Nicholas when that series came out. He's a good dude. All right. Anyway, let's do Depths of Vanolf, which is progression fantasy, I've been informed, which is similar to Lit RPG. Sister genres, you could say. Let's give it a read. Oh, it's got a cool map. It's sideways, but man, that looks like an Incarnate map if ever I've seen one. I'm actually certain it is. I recognize those stamps. Y'all, if you see my Friday streams, every Friday we make fantasy maps on stream. So here we go. Here's our graphic for them. But Fantasy Map Friday, every Friday at 7 a.m. Central, we'll make maps like these live on stream. But looking at this book, this map here, this is an Incarnate map. I am darn certain it is. It's made by someone who's really good, but that's definitely an Incarnate map. You can tell because the mountain stamps are exactly similar to what we would use in our Friday streams. Yeah, Phoenix, you agree. Cool Imp, you recommended Black Tongue Thief last week and we didn't get to it, right? You got it, my guy. We're bumping it to the top. Who's it by? Remind me of the author. Serpent and the Wings of Night was also one from last week we didn't get to, so we're going to put that up top as well. All right, let's do Depths of Vanolf by Brady Hunsaker. Hope I'm saying that right. Oh, wow, that's cool art, y'all, for the first chapter. I'm a fan of that. All right, Chapter 1, To Dream. There were 100 ways to get killed by monsters, but perhaps the most exciting was to enter their den, travel to the bottom of it, and hope to make it back out alive, with a slim chance of survival, all for the purpose of emerging with magical powers. This was a task every initiate committed themselves to when they joined the Grimner School around the age of 10. By 18, they would enter the monster's realm, Vanolf. Halleck was one such initiate, and now, with a year of training remaining, he sought the opportunity to enter the depths of Vanolf early. To do that, he needed to prove himself. The leather grip of his wooden practice sword felt hot in Halleck's palm as he faced off against Storr. The other boy was taller and thicker, and he came from the final year class, while Halleck was 1 year his junior. Orinda, their combat instructor, stood to the side, arms folded, feathered wings tucked behind her back. That's a fun detail. This was Halleck's chance to prove himself. If he could beat Storr, that should be evidence enough that he could enter Vanolf a year early. Then he could emerge from the cave a Grimner, a survivor gifted with one of 4 magical classes. He was tired of being a student. Going off to discover what happened to his father was completely unreasonable without having the strength of a Grimner. Orinda nodded, and the battle began. Okay. This is interesting, y'all. This is one of the first progression fantasies we've done on stream here. And you can tell with the opening, at least I can, for being in that genre pretty heavily. The books in this genre tend to be a bit more explainy off the bat. They don't like dance around the point. They just kind of like right to it, man. For better or for worse, it can be done well. It is hard to do well. But let's look at this. Where's the hook in this? I think it's just the opening sentence, right? There were 100 ways to get killed by monsters, but perhaps the most exciting was to enter their den, travel to the bottom of it, and hope to make it back out alive with a slim chance of survival, all for the purpose of emerging with magical powers. Personally, I'd prefer to split that into 2 or 3 sentences. It's a little bit long, but I think the opening fragment there were 100 ways to get killed by monsters, is a pretty interesting opening. And it gets your attention right off the bat, right? Cool Imp, thank you for grabbing that author name for me. I've added it to the list. Ego, we don't have time for dancing, we need levels to go up. Yeah, so y'all, if you're unfamiliar with the progression fantasy genre, you could boil it all down to number go up. It is basically a genre in which folks train to get stronger, typically through some sort of magic system or leveling system. Often kind of a power fantasy focus to it. But like I said, you can boil it down to number go up. So it will progression fantasy will tend to eschew other plot lines or elements in favor of just gaining stronger and fighting bigger and badder monsters. It's cool in its own way. I'm a fan of it. I think we're all a fan of number go up at some level, right? But an example of how it just jumps into things, right? Like this first paragraph is a lot of information right off the bat, which stylistically could work for you, could not. What I can say is I like the hook of there were 100 ways to get killed by monsters, and I like the initial scene of what's happening. I would just prefer a little more subtlety with how it's all mixed in. Like give us a little bit of action and then a sprinkle of the explanation. But that's personal preference. This is obviously done pretty well. 438 reviews, ain't nothing wrong with that. That's a solid launch, especially for indie. Jackie Ann, you said, I think if this scene, you think of this scene as like the tutorial scene in a game. That works. Progression Fantasy has grown out of Lit RPG, which are, game focused. They have a hard magic system, rules and levels, so that kind of makes sense. Phoenix, you're reading one now. You said, girl has to improve her library to get better numbers. Interesting. So a little bit of a library take, a reading take on it. We getting a bit meta with it. All right, well, interesting. I want to read the back cover of this real quick, or at least part of it. The first book of an epic progression fantasy series inspired by Scandinavian folklore, The Witcher, Dungeons and Dragons, where a young man named Halleck has been training his whole life to become a magic wielder or Grimner to keep his island safe. But when monsters breach the shield protecting his realm, Halleck must venture into the mystical cave of Vanoff to hone his skills to protect everything he holds dear. Okay, that makes sense. That tracks. That's about what I would expect. Lacking Serotonin, you said Magic Misfits. Give me the author name for that one if you can, please. But we'll add it to the list. All right, let's jump to the next one. I owe y'all Black Tongue Thief. Or actually, wait, hold on. Before that, we'll do Black Tongue Thief second. First, I need to do The Serpent and the Wings of Night, because that was recommended last stream, and we didn't get to it. So, y'all, as always, if I don't get to your book on stream, and you recommended it, come back next stream, next Wednesday, and tell me that, you recommended it and we didn't get to it, and I will bump it to the top of the list. All right. I don't think we've done this one, y'all. Remind me if that's not the case, but I don't think we've done this. The cover looks vaguely familiar, but I don't think. Let me just see the opening line. That'll tell me right off the bat if we've done it or not. I vaguely recognize the map, but that might not mean much. Yes. We have done this one. I think it was a long time ago. I think it was a month or two ago. But we've definitely done this one. All right, so let's talk about the cover for a moment. Always got to pause here. I really like the color of it. The blue and the green stands out wonderfully on that grayish kind of silver background. I'm kind of digging the energy of just the cover itself. Maybe a little bit busy for my tastes, just because we have, the Crowns of Nyaxia novel at the top, then The Serpents and the Wings of Night, a little bit of art, and then book one of the Nightborn duet, Carissa Broadbent. Little bit busy, but beautiful art. I really like the colors on it. Oh, and I just noticed there's like statues down in here hidden in it too. Very cool. I dig it. All right, so let's read. I start where the author chose to begin the prose. So we'll start with the prologue. Lacking Serotonin over on the video website. You said really cool, nice tones. I'm glad you agree. All right, it's a small font. Small font. We're entering hard mode, everybody. I will try not to stumble too much through the tiny font. It's just a artifact of how the preview sometimes shows up through the stream. All right. The king did not know then that his greatest love would also be his ruination, nor that either would come in the form of a tiny, helpless human child. She was a lone flutter of life in an endless expanse of decay, the only living mortal for 100 miles. The child was perhaps 4, perhaps 8, It was hard to tell because she was so small, even by human standards. Just a frail little creature with slick black hair that curtained wide gray eyes. Somewhere, buried beneath charred beams and crumbled stone, the girl's family likely lay crushed beyond recognition. Or perhaps their ravaged bodies had been left out in the night, taken by predators just like the ones that stalked the child now, looking down at her with the interest that a hawk afforded a rabbit. The humans, of course, were nothing more than that in this world. Prey, pests, or often both. The three winged men landed before her, smiling at their luck. Immediately, the little girl struggled against the debris that pinned her. She recognized what they were, recognized their pointed teeth and black, featherless wings, and perhaps she even recognized the uniforms they wore, the deep purple of the Hiaj, Nightborn King? Did I say that right? Hiaj? Hiaj? Nightborn King. Perhaps the men who had burned her home had worn uniforms just like these. But she could not run. Her clothing was torn and hopelessly tangled in the ruins around her. She was too small to shift the stones. All right. There's the opening. Opening few paragraphs there. Let's talk about it. So the hook here, right off the bat, the king did not know that his greatest love would also be his ruination, nor that either would come in the form of a tiny, helpless human child. It's a good opening, a good hook in terms of getting you to ask questions. The question that immediately popped into my mind is the king and this main character is this a love between a father and a child, or is this a romantic love? Being romantasy, it's easy that there could be just a big age gap here. That often happens. Feel about that how you will. But that was what was the first question in my mind. And I did want to read on a little bit to get that answered. That's how hooks work. But then we immediately introduce some danger, which is always a classic hook. But what I really liked here was there was a little bit of a sprinkling in of world building. I guess I should say there was a very smooth transition from the opening hook into a description of the character into the world building. It was a nice transition there. Let's look at how that's done again. She was alone. I'll just do it from the start. The king did not know then that his greatest love would also be his ruination, nor that either would come in the form of a tiny, helpless human child. She was a lone flutter of life in an endless expanse of decay. So there we're transitioning from the opening hook into a little bit of description, which I think is a smooth transition. The only living mortal for 100 miles. The child was perhaps 4, perhaps 8. That's a fun detail, being, an immortal or at least a long-lived creature of some sort, having trouble telling how old a human is. I love that. It was hard to tell because she was so small, even by human standards. Just a frail little creature with slick black hair that curtained wide gray eyes. So there's our character description. And then we transition into a little bit of the danger and the world, with somewhere, buried beneath charred beams and crumbled stone, the girl's family likely lay crushed beyond recognition. I think each of those is a poignant, short to the point paragraph that transitions nicely between them. So it just kind of glides you along through the story with a couple hooks embedded in. I think it's a very good opening. Absolutely solid. And of course, we see Book Talk levels of virality on this with 145,000 reviews. Just unfathomable. But pretty impressive. Congratulations on that. Destroy and Dan, welcome in, my friend. And Tide and Tara, good to see you. Destroy and Dan, you've been working 70 hours a week. Bro, way too much, dude. I'm sorry to hear that. I hope it calms down a little bit. That's way too much. Oh, Jack Ann, thank you for the clarification. You said, for anyone wondering, this is her father figure, not love interest. Okay, that makes me happy. I'm glad to hear that. That is good to know. Thank you for that, Jack Ann. Oh, am I blurry again? Oh, it looks like it got fixed. Walcaria, you loved this series. A lot of folks did. Hugely popular series. Obviously, there's something to it, huh? Yeah, Faithless, I could agree with you on that. You said you're not a fan of the so frail, so weak female main character that's so strong in the world's magic system trope. I can agree with that. I think part of why that's done is it's really just making a contrast of it's trying to up the stakes by being like, y'all, there's no way this character is going to survive, and it makes it all the more impressive when they do. But like any trope, I think it can be overdone, and you just get tired of seeing it. And yeah, like Titan Terra said, it can work great for an arc. It's a character has to start somewhere that we might not like in order to grow to a place that we do like. It makes it more satisfying. In classic fantasy, you might see that as a positive change character arc where the character starts with flaws that hold them back, and through the story grows to overcome them and becomes a more powerful character because of it. Alright, so next one, The Black Tongue Thief by Christopher Buehlman. This was recommended last week and we didn't get to it, so we've bumped it to the top. And then we have a few more to get through today. So let's check out... I've not read this one, but I've heard very, very good things about it. Got a nice map. Always love a map. I can't tell if that was made with any proprietary software. It doesn't look like an Inkarnate map, but it's a cool map. I love our crow here in the compass rose. Oh boy, Chapter 1, The Forest of Orphans. That's a powerful title, right off the bat. All right. Titan Terra, you asked, are maps like this typically drawn by an artist? It depends. These days, there's a lot of software out there that can that you can use to competently make maps. So I think like having an artist hand draw it is not as common these days. It's more digital art. But with the advent of software like Inkarnate and Wonderdraft, etc., it's easy to make maps without being a traditional artist. The programs really help you, just give you the tools to make it happen. So it's probably a good time for maps, honestly. More ways to make them than ever before. Alright, Chapter 1, The Forest of Orphans. I was about to die. Worse, I was about to die with bastards. Not that I was afraid to die, but maybe who you die with is important. It's important who's with you when you're born, after all. If everybody's wearing clean linen and silk and looking down at you squirming in your bassinet, you'll have a very different life than if the first thing you see when you open your eyes is a billy goat. I looked over at Pagran and decided he looked uncomfortably like a billy goat, what with his long head, long beard, and unlovely habit of chewing even when he had no food. Pagran used to be a farmer. Frella, just next to him in rusty ringmail, used to be his wife. Now they were thieves, but not subtle thieves like me. I was trained in lock-picking, wall-scaling, fall-breaking, lie-weaving, voice-throwing, trap-making, trap-finding, and not a half-bad archer, fiddler, and knife-fighter besides. I also knew several dozen cantrips, small but useful magic. Alas, I owed the Takers Guild so much money for my training that I found myself squatting in the Forest of Orphans with these thick bastards, hoping to rob somebody the old-fashioned way. You know, threaten them with death. Okay, interesting. So, I was about to die is a very easy hook, I suppose. Easy to the point of I think it can be overdone. So I'm very interested in I want it to be elaborated on, and it's not in those opening few lines. So I'm sure it is later on, but I would have liked it to be followed up on a little bit sooner. That being said, I think there's some really good character demonstration here with the long list of skills that they're good at. Let's see. I was trained in lock-picking, wall-scaling, fall-breaking, lie-weaving, voice-throwing, trap-making, trap-finding, and not a half-bad archer, fiddler, and knife-fighter besides. That's a fun... I think that's a really good hook there, honestly. And I like that a lot. That's pretty fun. That was my favorite part of the opening. But talking about hooks, you have the I was about to die for the opening line. And also the concept of, not that I was afraid to die, but maybe who you die with is important. I would like that to be elaborated on. I think it's a fun concept. I was expecting a little more elaboration on it. I'm sure we'll get there, but those were the two strongest hooks for me on the opening. And then getting to know the personality, hints of the personality of the main character with their long list of skills they've learned. I think that's quite interesting. And it's also a funny juxtaposition to have all those skills and then be like, but today I was just being a regular highwayman. How boring. Nowhere near as thrilling as lockpicking, lie weaving, and wall scaling. Cool Imp, you said this entire book is super voicey. You read it on your vacation last month. Hey, there's nothing wrong with a voicey book. I like voicey, honestly. If you're just in the character's head, hear them speaking to you right away. I think it's a good way to show personality, and it makes it like the main characters narrating their own story, which I think is fun. Brianna, you just read Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. So good. Okay, I've heard of it. I'm not too familiar, though. Tam, you said, what is voice? Voice is, in this context, is basically the way that the main character or the narrator is talking in prose. The way that their internal monologue is happening, the way that they are thinking about things, that's all voice. Separate from spoken dialogue. Which you could call voice, but is not really what we're referring to. So basically, the whole paragraph about now they were thieves, but not subtle thieves like me. I was trained in lockpicking, wall scaling, fall breaking, that whole thing. That whole part is a good demonstration of character voice there. Good question. All right, that was Black Tongue Thief by Christopher Buehlman. Let's see what else we got on the list. Glurag, I'm sure I'm butchering that. You said, I overslept today. Have we done any that contrast first versus third person? Let's see. We did Hatchet by Gary Paulson. That was, if I recall, it was first person. Court of Thorn and Roses, which was first person. Depths of Vanolf, which was, I think, first person as well. Glera. Okay, Glera. Gotcha. I'll try to remember that. We did The Serpent and the Wings of Night. That was third person, at least for the prologue. I'm not sure where it was going to go from there. Romantasy tends to be first person, so I would guess that it was probably going into first person. And then we just did Black Tongue Thief, which was first person. All right, y'all, I want to do a special one today. Also, speaking of first person, so I have let's pop it over to this view because I have a special something I want to show off today. I have an ARC copy of one of my friend's book, ARC being advanced review copy or advanced reader copy. I got to do the ARC read for the first book in this series, and now my good friend has sent me the second book, which is, look at that beautiful advanced reader ribbon on it. That's so cool. I am in love with that, y'all. So for the next one, I'm going to do The Beast of the Black Hills by Jonathan Smith. Friend of mine, special ARC copy they sent. Y'all, look at the personalization on this. They did their own sprayed edges with a stamp. And then art on the top, and then just this ribbon. I'm just in love with this ribbon. It's super cool. So fun book. If you're unaware, this is from the Elemental Gunslinger series. Speaking of progression fantasy, this fits into progression fantasy. Cultivation, more specifically. And it's basically Wild West meets progression fantasy, which is a very interesting cross-section to me. It's a lot of fun. So I want to do the opening lines of it. A little bit of book spoilers for book one, but I don't think it's anything too bad. So let's give it a read, huh? Chapter 1. It ain't right, I grumbled as I watched the town burn. None of this is right. The three of us sat atop our horses, watching as the first stop between St. Louis and the West proper was consumed by flames. Take it as a reminder that life don't care about right and wrong, Clint said. For the first time, he seemed to actually embody just how old he was. His eyes sagged and there was sorrow in his voice, strands of his gray hair and mustache gently dancing in the breeze. His eyes, normally piercing and focused, had a tinge of sorrow in them as he watched the town burn. This fire and the events of the past few weeks had worn on him, and yet I knew it had also reignited something within him. Colonel Clint Westbrook, feared as the whisper of death by Confederate soldiers, a living legend, and my latest mentor, had a new score to settle. I've grown rather tired of such reminders, I said bitterly, my hands resting on the twin pistols at my side. The pearl-handled revolvers gave me comfort. They were the last gift I had from my original mentor, my family's butler, who had once even been a U.S. Marshal. He was the reason I was alive today, and he was the reason for my current lot in life. Until you stop grumbling about them, Clint countered, then you still need them. So, opening lines of The Beast of the Black Hills. A big shout out to Jonathan Smith for sending me the art copy. I got an unboxing video coming for this soon, but let's talk about him real quick. I like this opening hook a lot with just, it ain't right, I grumbled as I watched the town burn. It's a simple opening hook. It's a good one. I want to know more about what's happening. And I like it almost opens like a Western in having its three characters sat atop their horses. You can imagine on a rise in the countryside watching the town ahead of them burn. It implies past events that have happened. You're joining the story at a moment when it's already underway. And I want to know more about literally everything that happened up until this point. So rock on. I dig it. Thank you for sending it, Jonathan. I appreciate your work. I enjoyed book one immensely. I'm sure I'll enjoy this one. I'm very excited to read it. And I just noticed the autograph in the front actually has like sparkling in the ink. That's pretty sick. Good details on this, y'all. I'll be shouting about it once it's live. I don't know if we have a launch date on this yet, but I'll let you know. All right, there's one more. I think we got time for, let's see, how many more we got on the list? We got several on the list. Let's highlight three and do a bit of a rapid fire here to knock out these next three. Oh yeah, thank you, Rish the Fish. I appreciate that question. I should have said that. You said, what is the first book called? The first book is called Flame Spitter. I'll put that in chat for you. And if you like Westerns and you like progression fantasy, boy, is it a heck of a combo. It works out very well. All right, so I'm going to highlight three books on the list, and we're going to do a rapid fire on them because I want to get through these. I want to make sure we get a few more books before stream's done. So we are pulling out Outlander, Kings of the Wild, and Bud Not Buddy. What a blast from the past, man. I appreciate that. Bud Not Buddy. That book hit me hard back in the day, so I'm excited to get back to it. But first, we have Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. I really liked the TV show, at least Gabaldon. I'm sure I'm saying this wrong. I really wanted to like this TV show, y'all. It just was too much sexual violence for my taste. It really put me off. But in terms of period dramas and history pieces, I absolutely love them. It just, it was very rapey. I'm sure TikTok hates me saying all these words. Anyway, this book's old. It's quite old. Thus, this cover. I'm sure they have new, updated covers. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Tara. You're so right. I need to put it back to this view so you can see the cover. There we go. Appreciate you, Tara. You are always on the ball. So yeah, cover's not doing too much for me personally, but I'm sure there's better ones out there. In fact, I've literally seen in-person copies of them that are better. But let's go ahead and read the opening lines. I've never read the opening of Outlander, so this will be interesting. Also, thank you for the follows, everybody. I appreciate that. I see you there. Oh boy, this is the hard mode of the day with the small font. Y'all, don't mind me squinting like an old man on this one. Alright, Chapter 1 of Outlander, A New Beginning. It wasn't a very likely place for disappearances, at least at first glance. Mrs. Baird's was like a thousand. Mrs. Baird's was like 1,000 other Highland bed and breakfast establishments in 1945. Clean and quiet, with fading floral wallpaper, gleaming floors, and a coin-operated hot water geyser in the lavatory. Mrs. Baird herself was squat and easygoing, and made no objection to Frank lining her tiny rose-sprigged parlor with the dozens of books and papers with which he always traveled. I met Mrs. Baird in the front hall on my way out. She stopped me with a pudgy hand on my arm and patted at my hair. "Dear me, Miss Randall." Oh no, it's Scottish accents, y'all. I can't do it. I can't do it. Lily, I would like to zoom in on the text for you, but some weird product of the previewer when run through stream is here. I'll attempt to zoom and watch what happens. It doesn't get bigger. It just kind of moves the page around. I don't know why. It works totally fine when I'm not on stream. And when I get on stream, I just can't zoom in. I don't know what it's about. Like, literally, there's a text size control right here. I'm already at max zoom anyway, it says. It's just, I don't understand. But anyway, that's why I apologize. I can't make it bigger for y'all. One day we'll figure it out, huh? The difficult reading this book is the Scottishness of it. Don't say that too loud. My coworker that I talk to most every day is Scottish, but I'm sure he would have some words about this as well. Okay, sorry. I got scared by the Scottish accent, which I'm not going to attempt to do. "Dear me, Mrs. Randall, you canna go out like that. Here, just let me tuck that bit in for you. There, that's better. You know, my cousin was telling me about a new perm she tried. Comes out beautiful and holds like a dream. Perhaps you should try it, that kind, next time." I hadn't the heart to tell her that the waywardness of my light brown curls was strictly the fault of nature, and not due to any dedication on the part of the permanent wave manufacturers. Her own tightly marshalled wave suffered from no such perversity. "Yes, I'll do that, Mrs. Baird," I lied. "I'm just going to go down to the village to meet Frank. I'll be back for tea." I ducked out the door and down the path before she could continue or detect any further defects in my undisciplined appearance. After 4 years as a Royal Army nurse, I was enjoying the escape from uniforms and rationing by indulging in brightly printed light cotton dresses, totally unsuited for rough walking through the heather. Not that I had originally planned to do a lot of that. My thoughts ran more on the lines of sleeping late in the mornings and long, lazy afternoons in bed with Frank, not sleeping. However, it was difficult to maintain the proper mood of languorous romance with Mrs. Baird industriously hoovering away outside our door. Alright, so there's the opening. Like I said, this is an older book. When's the pub date on this? Yeah, January 1, 1992. Writing was very different back then. The accepted way to start a book was very different back then. Not that you can't do it however you want these days, but there are industry standards that we believe hook writers or readers better these days. This one, you got a good hook with it wasn't a very likely place for disappearances, at least at a first glance. I think it's a strong hook right off the bat. But then it takes a little bit of a divergence to explain kind of the setting, what's going on, etc. It's not objectively bad by any means. It's just not the hookiest intro. And I feel like today's environment is a lot more competitive in terms of you gotta hook people right away and keep them in. After, a page or two, maybe a chapter, then you can kind of settle in and get more comfortable. But the 90s were different for publishing. So this one, like I said, strong hook off the bat and then kind of settles in with some description explaining what's going on, etc. Nothing wrong with it, but just not, it's not going to grab you and hold you in there. But yes, interesting. This is our rapid fire, so we'll move on to the next one. You can't see your username, but you said if you add pictures in the book, I'm buying it. Well, good news, my friend. If we go to Wriggly Little Hands here, my most recent book, link in bio, there are pictures. There is a map. There's also a doodle at the beginning of every chapter where an artist friend of mine depicted some goofy event from the chapter in their own style. It's been a lot of fun and very much fits the tone. So, hey, links in bio. Check it out if you want. It is a comedy fantasy where a family of goblins go on a quest to retrieve the Dark Lord's doomsday weapon and help him defeat defeat the forces of good once and for all. Except they're goblins, so they don't do well staying on task or just not setting things on fire for fun. It's very goofy. Check it out. You might enjoy it. All right, back to our rapid fire. What's the next one on the list? Looks like it is Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames. This is a fun one. Also, love the cover. It just feels like a band poster, and it's sick. This book oozes style that I really appreciate. I remember this one made a splash when it came out. It's very new, very different, especially for a fantasy. I think it's an interesting mixing of genres, essentially. But we'll talk about the cover, then we'll read the first lines, and then get to our last book. So Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames. I like this art style, was really in back then, especially with like the Grimdark crowd. Grimdark was really having a moment around this point in time, and this like detailed but a little bit out of focus cover was a very popular thing. It's also fun as you read through the story to flip back and try to figure out which character is which. Tide and Terror is giving you Viking vibes. Yeah, I can see that inspiration. It's a fun world where it's almost like a D&D-esque world where like being in a group of adventurers is called being in a band, and it makes a lot of reference and parallels to like touring with a band in the real world. You would tour with your band of adventurers to fight monsters around the countryside and stuff. It's a fun concept. Oh, we got big font on this one. Let's go. It's gonna spare my eyes after Outlander strained them. Okay, so Chapter 1 of Kings of the Wild. A ghost on the road. You'd have guessed from the size of his shadow that Clay Cooper was a bigger man than he was. He was certainly bigger than most, with broad shoulders and a chest like an iron-strapped keg. His hands were so large that most mugs looked like teacups when he held them, and the jaw beneath his shaggy brown beard was wide and sharp as a shovel blade. But his shadow, drawn out by the setting sun, skulked behind him like a dogged reminder of the man he used to be. Great and dark and more than a little monstrous. What a good opening, y'all. I am a sucker for that. That is just an absolutely well-delivered, powerful opening. Let's read a little bit more. Finished with his work for the day, Clay slogged down the beaten track that passed for a thoroughfare in Coverdale, sharing smiles and nods with those hustling home before dark. He wore a watchman's green tabard over a shabby leather jerkin, and a weathered sword and a ruffled scabbard on his hip. His shield, chipped and scored and scratched through the years by axes and arrows and raking claws, was slung across his back. And his helmet, well, Clay had lost the one the sergeant had given him last week, just as he'd misplaced the one given to him the month before, and every few months since the day he'd signed on to the watch, almost 10 years ago now. A helmet restricted your vision, all but negated your hearing, and more often than not made you look stupid as hell. Clay Cooper didn't do helmets, and that was that. Alright, we'll pause it there. Very fun opening. I really love ending on that character detail. Clay Cooper didn't do helmets, and that was that. Great personification of the character. It's really showing us, his personality, and I love that. But talk about a cool opening. I really like how much background kind of depth this is hinting at. There's a lot of events that have happened before this that this introduction would hint toward. You'd have guessed from the size of his shadow that Clay Cooper was a bigger man than he was. That's a cool line. It's just like an ominous description, but it also, I don't know, maybe it's because I've read the book, but to me it feels like that's going to be more than just literal, right? That feels like there's going to be more going on there. He was certainly bigger than most, with broad shoulders and a chest like an iron-strapped keg. Great description. His hands were so large that most mugs looked like teacups when he held them, and the jaw beneath his shaggy brown beard was wide and sharp as a shovel blade. Just banger description after banger description. I love it. But his shadow, drawn out by the setting sun, skulked behind him like a dogged reminder of the man he used to be. Great and dark and more than a little monstrous. It's just good, y'all. Sometimes good writing's just good writing, and this absolutely is. Don't need to say more than that. It's good for a reason. 13,000 reviews. Book did pretty darn good. Congrats to Nicholas Eames. It's a great book. Thank you for recommending it. Alright, y'all, we got time for one more today. I really need to go and get to work, but let's do one more. I'm super excited for this one. I did not expect to see this pop up in the recommendations, so thank you for recommending this. Bud Not Buddy. Y'all, I read this as a kid. I loved it. It was a pivotal book for me, I think. This was before I wanted to be a writer when I first read this. Required reading for a lot of schools. This book hit me in a big way. Game Vandal, you said, Alex, what do you recommend for a good thriller prologue? Short, to the point, and makes the reader ask a lot of questions. Like, it's been a hot minute since I've read it. Think about, like, the Da Vinci Code. I'm pretty sure the prologue of the Da Vinci Code is just like the curator of the Louvre being, activating a security gate, being behind it, and then getting shot and, like, bleeding out on the floor of the Louvre. It makes you ask questions. It has a mysterious villain, and you don't really know what's happening. It just throws you right into it. A lot happens. You don't know what's happening, and then it cuts and moves on to the story. I think that's what you should do for a thriller prologue. Also, though, I absolutely agree with Slendy's advice. Read a lot of thrillers. All right, let's do Bud Not Buddy. Alicia, you said you struggled to do the required reading in school. It can be hard if you're not too into it, being forced to read something. But sometimes, man, some of the books just hit. Like, you could tell they were good books for a reason, and this one definitely did for me. Oh, I love this font. I really like that. That's cool. All right, Bud Not Buddy by Christopher Paul Curtis. Also, so cool how Chapter 1 is written in almost like a child's hand. That's cool. Here we go again. We were all standing in line waiting for breakfast when one of the caseworkers came in and tapped down the line. Uh-oh. This meant bad news. Either they'd found a foster home for somebody, or somebody was about to get paddled. All the kids watched the woman as she moved along the line, her high-heeled shoes sounding like little firecrackers going off on the wooden floor. Shoot. She stopped at me and said, "Are you Buddy Caldwell?" I said, "It's Bud, not Buddy, ma'am." She put her hand on my shoulder and took me out of line. Then she pulled Jerry, one of the littler boys, over. "Aren't you Jerry Clark?" He nodded. "Boys, good news. Now that the school year has ended, you both have been accepted in new temporary care homes starting this afternoon." Jerry asked the same thing I was thinking. "Together?" She said, "Why, no, Jerry, you'll be in a family with 3 little girls." Jerry looked like he'd just found out they were going to dip him in a pot of boiling milk. "And Bud," she looked at some papers she was holding. "Oh yes, the Amoses. You'll be with Mr. and Mrs. Amos and their son, who's 12 years old. That makes him just 2 years older than you, doesn't it, Bud?" "Yes, ma'am." She said, "I'm sure you'll both be very happy." Okay, so we'll pause it there. Just a good little entrance. Gotta love the title drop right off the bat with "It's Bud, not Buddy, ma'am." I really, really love the description of her high heels sounding like little firecrackers with each step. That's pretty cool. That's a good little detail. This is another older book. Let's see. Let's get the publishing date on it. I mean, I read it when I was in, like, elementary school, so... wow. Really? 2002? I thought it was much older than that. Guess I learned something. Perhaps, I mean, it is set in the 30s, so that probably contributes to it feeling a bit older. Sarah, the opening line to All Systems Red by Martha Wells is so good. Absolutely agree. All Systems Red, book 1 of the Murderbot Diaries, I think it's called. One of my all-time faves. Definitely in the top 3 books we've done on this stream format. Might be number 1. It's so good. Highly recommend that book. Anyway, but I needed to do a little bit of breakdown on this one. I think the hook here is that it is the character implying it's a bad thing that someone might have found a foster home, right? Like the caseworker walking down the line and kind of scaring everybody, implying that someone's either going to get paddled or they've been adopted. I guess it's not adoption, it's fostering. They've been fostered. That being a scary thing, I think is an interesting, as someone who hasn't been in that system, especially in 1930s America, I'm surprised to hear that that's a bad thing. And then we had a question earlier about voice. This is a good example of voice. The way that even the narration is in the voice of the main character. That's basically what we were talking about when we were talking about voice earlier. Man, it's been a long time since I read this. I might have to reread this one. Anyway, yeah. Bud Not Buddy. It's a great book. Short, easy read. Yeah. Sorry, just catching up on chat here. You said, I relate to Murderbot so much as an autistic person. I could see that, Slendy. The main character is very unique in their own way, but it's very charming and very fun. I love their original take on things. It's an enjoyable character to read. Lines and Lore editorial, you said to look more into voice, authors can look into free, indirect style narration. Interesting. I've not heard it described as such, but that makes sense to me. Game Vandal, you said, where was it? What's everyone's opinion on 1984 and Animal Farm? We have done 1984 on stream several times, as well as Fahrenheit 451. We've never done Animal Farm, I don't believe. But those books are scary to read this day and age. That's all I'll say. Slendy, thank you for the reminder. I fully agree. Folks, if you want to hang out, if you've enjoyed this stream and the folks here, you want to hang out with us outside of stream, I'll post our Discord link here in chat now. But it's also in my bio because sometimes TikTok will censor it. So if you want to go to my bio, you can find it there. It's a lovely Discord. You got 200-something members in there, and we do a lot of what we did here. We talk about books, share art, share opening lines, etc., etc. It's a good time. We'd love to have you there. DBZ Now, you said Battleborn's your favorite lit RPG. I don't think I have read it. Let me take a look. Is there more to the title? It's probably this one right here. This is book 2, though. Let's grab book 1. Outbreak? Is that the what you're talking about? Born with an E. Ah, there we go. Assuming it's this one? Yep. That opening line for the description fully tracks for a lit RPG. No, I've not read that one. But DBZ, if you want us to do it on stream, recommend it next Wednesday, and we will go through the opening lines. That'll be fun. I don't know why my sorry, y'all can't see the cover. I'm sitting here talking about it. There we go. If you want it next stream, please recommend it. Y'all, if I didn't get to your book this stream, I apologize. But as always, come back and recommend it next week. And if it was on the list today and we didn't get to it, if you say it next week, it gets priority. It'll get bumped right to the top of the list. So yeah. Other than that, thank you for being here today, everybody. Thank you for the follows. I hope you had fun. Hope you learned a little bit. I will be posting the list of books that we covered in stream today in the Discord right as soon as I get off here. So look for it there. And once again, if you want the Discord link, here it is. It's also in my bio if you want to join us there. But otherwise, I have been author Alex Knight. I stream every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 a.m. Central Time, and we do something different every day. Mondays, we just do general Ask Me Anything. I'll take all of your questions about books, writing, publishing, anything you're curious about in those worlds. I'm happy to talk about them. Could be writing advice, could be how does publishing work, could be how much money do you make as an author. Anything like that, Which, to be fair, anytime I'm live, feel free to ask those questions. I love to talk about them. On Wednesdays, we do what we did today, where we pull up the opening lines. You tell me your favorite book. I read the opening lines and give you a little bit of a breakdown, how I see it as an author, a little bit of the, look behind the curtain. And then on Fridays, we do fantasy maps. We make them live on stream. So please tune in on Friday, 7 a.m. Central. We'll be continuing on our map. I made a lot of progress on it last time, and I did a little bit of work on it too in the background off stream. So you'll notice a few changes to it. It's going to be fun. Other than that, y'all, thank you for being here today. I hope you had a good time. And as always, a special thanks to Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com for the use of his songs. Don't know, I was going to say a different song name. The same songs as always, Farm, Manor, Cottages, and Northern Glade, which have provided our background music today. You can hear it playing now. As well, an extra special thank you to community member Raffi the Engineer, who provided our 5th background song, Midnight at the Round Table. Raffi, I appreciate you, my guy. Thank you. Of course, a shout out to my excellent mods. Raffi the Engineer once again. Melissa Lee 28, One Happy Harpy, aka Slendy. Other name wasn't available, Simp1X, Leisha T, and Aaron Winnick. Y'all, thank you for being here. Thank you for moderating. And thank you to chat for not needing much moderation. You guys are awesome. I appreciate the good energy you bring. It's always a pleasure to have you. Lastly, if you've enjoyed the stream, please give me a follow so I can catch you on the next one, y'all. That'll be Friday at 7 a.m. Central Time. We will be back. Until then, hope you have a good week. Autumn Fox, she said, what do I use to make the map? I use inkcarnate.com. I'll put the name in chat for you. It is a free online map maker. I highly recommend it. There you go. Thank you for being here today, folks. I hope you had a good time. I certainly enjoyed hanging out with you. Thank you for the follows, the comments. Thank you for continuing and contributing. It's a pleasure to have you. I will catch you all on Friday, so come ready for maps because we're going to do some map making. I'll see you then, guys. Have a good one. Peace out.